Hello classmates, here we go. Of course, you have your textbook right there. You have something to write on and something to write with, and you're ready to rock and roll. Bad news messages. Ooh. And the first question is, why do we need to learn about this? Well, it turns out that we are going to give, or we have been giving bad news already a lot in our personal lives, saying no to an invitation, saying no to a request to joining somebody at the prom, and of course also in the business world. If you're currently employed, you probably have some stories as well as previous employments, even babysitting, having to say no to a parent who really wants us to babysit and we don't have time or don't want it. So all of these things come into play, and how to do that professionally and gracefully. That's what it's about. Number one, we ourselves need to be clear on the reasons why we're saying no, and then we will need to be able to convey those clearly. When we are dealing with employees, either colleagues or those reporting to us in the workplace, then it gets even more sensitive. We really need to stay honest. At the same time, we need to use the buffer reason bad news closing sequencing in order to soften all that. If we need to say no to a customer, and yes, we will have to say no to a customer. So why need to be really good at the saying no things and giving bad news? Well, because we are trying to give the bad news in such a way that it is easier to accept them and move forward. At the same time, we also want to convey the positive image, because it is much more expensive to find a new customer than to keep an old one or an existing one. And thinking about productivity, we really want to avoid the back and forth in email and phone calls and customers coming to our place of retail, because it is so unproductive and it costs a lot of money. And lastly, we definitely want to protect ourselves from lawsuit and also the company. Now, from my research, the average customer, if the customer is happy, tells 9 people, whereas a disappointed one will tell 16. I think that's low, because once we're getting into the social media and people post about good and bad experiences, so chances are that these numbers increase. However, the other thing to keep in mind is that not all disappointed customers will say anything about their bad experience, especially not to the companies where they had the bad experiences. So that's another challenge we have to deal with. What about those legal problems? Well, all of these are only in place if there are witnesses. Next up, the reactions for the negative, the bad news, basically. Well, there will be disappointment, there will be anger, there will be at least irritation. And you probably have experienced that yourself. And this is where you come in, because your to-do for Thursday, 3 short paragraphs. Please think of a time when you had to share bad news with someone. First paragraph, how did you do it? Second paragraph, what channel did you use? And the third paragraph, of course, so how did it work out? Alrighty, moving on. Here we go with the indirect strategy. Buffer reason, bad news closing, buffer reason, bad news closing. Okay, and let's not reinvent the wheel. In our textbook, toward the back, there are these cardboard pages. A cardboard page number 4 gives an example of the bad news one, so you can use that. And bad news come in all shapes and colors, don't they? So what about the writing part of the bad news? Well, the first thing is that we need to figure out where to put the actual saying no, the actual bad news. And of course, our sequence buffer reason bad news closing already tells us about that. Other techniques are the use of construction of sentences as well as the words that we use. And we are going to focus on the passive voice because instead of saying this or you cannot return the DVD player, how about this one? See how that is already a little bit softer? Instead of accusatory and blaming, let's use this, and I'm going to move me around there. We don't need to point the finger. We can deal with that in other places. And that was it, and I can't wait to see you. Bye.